We're here on Chance Street in Devens, Massachusetts. I'm here with Dan Gainsborough, the developer of Emerson Green. This is the first phase of a 17-unit single and multifamily subdivision that was part of the Devens Innovative Residential Development Regulations. We created specific regulations to foster this type of development that allows for cluster, so tighter, smaller lots, shorter infrastructure, protecting more open space in exchange for more energy efficient, compact, and affordable development. So what you see here is the first phase of Emerson Green. It's Chance Street. It's 17 units. There are single family and duplexes all along the street. You see our regulations also require shorter infrastructure, so you see a 20-foot wide street. And the homes are pushed right up to the front. That's on purpose from a zoning standpoint. We don't have setbacks. We have build-to lines. That brings the buildings close up. You can see the front porch concept. Everybody has, their own front porch. So the idea is people aren't kind of hanging out in their backyards by themselves. They're hanging out in the front and socializing with their neighbors. So it's a more social and engaging neighborhood. It's termed as a new urbanist type development pattern. Meant to create a sense of community for people, not for cars. You can see you don't see any garages here. The garages are all in the rear. They're accessed by service roads. As I mentioned, very narrow roads. These are 20-foot wide roads. It's plenty of space for emergency vehicles. We're creating a community for people, not just cars. So you can see sidewalks on both sides of the roads. The narrow roads, the street trees, that all helps slow down traffic and make the neighborhood more safe. And these were all intentional design measures that were included in our regulations that Dan, who's the developer, followed and came up with some beautiful designs of these super energy efficient homes that are net zero energy ready. And turn it over to Dan to talk more about the homes.
Thanks. So Neil just gave a ton of great information. I would add a couple of things. So it is a master plan community. When we're done, we'll be a total of 124 homes. There is a mix of detached single families, attached, as well as a 40-unit rental apartment building. All of it is based on the principles of traditional neighborhood design, which Neil kind of highlighted. It's an idea of having a close-knit community, and the street becomes energized due to the relationship of the front porches to the street itself. So there's an interaction between folks that are walking on the street and people that are hanging out on their porches, and that's a big decision. The other big decision was to separate the cars from the people, so that one feels a little bit more safe and secure out in the street and on the sidewalks. And as Neil mentioned, the idea of prioritizing plants and people over cars and convenience. That's a big tenet in the design work that we do. The other thing that might be worth mentioning is just the scale of the homes. They are designed very deliberately to be right-sized and compact. They range anywhere from about 1,900 square feet to just a little over 2,000 square feet. All of them are 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath homes, and they are designed to be net zero possible, and they are also designed to utilize all electric systems. So that our homes typically, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit later on, but right out of the box, they use about 60 to 70% less energy to heat and cool.
As Dan mentioned, smaller lots, a little more compact homes, 5,000 square foot lots generally, clustered together. All have direct access to open space. Every home in this development is within steps of open space, which accesses miles of trails in Devens. The sidewalk network connects into our existing residential neighborhoods. So it's a very well-connected neighborhood, very walkable, which leads to our, Kind of goes to our Healthy Communities proclamation that we passed a number of years ago. The other thing to mention is that the affordability aspect. While the majority of these homes are market rate, there are two types of affordable housing in this development. There is low-income housing, which is the 80 to 120% of area median income. There are a few units in this development that qualify for that. We also have in Devens a unique type of workforce housing or affordable housing, which is workforce affordable housing, which is 100% of the area median income. And why we have that is because Devens already has almost 25% of our existing housing stock is already low to moderate income. So we wanted to create another income area for the workforce or affordable workforce housing, which is at 100% of area median income.
So just another thought that an important element is that when the decision to separate the cars and the people is also another wonderful benefit, which is it gets people out and walking in the neighborhood so that there's much more social interaction. It's a very big part of our communities, is both the walkable element, but perhaps even more important, and certainly a byproduct of that decision, is the connectivity. So your opportunity to interact with your neighbors and get to know them. And we even do some things as simple but as powerful as having a centralized mail station that because we all pretty much go out and get our mail once a day, and that's a great opportunity for people to meet one another on an informal basis and get to know them. In fact, in one of our other projects, one of our residents commented that they met more of their neighbors in the first 10 minutes of living in our community than they did in living in their previous community for 10 years. So it's a pretty powerful idea. So here's one of our typical homes. And before we take a look inside, I just want to give you a little bit of rundown on the big ideas of our homes, both in terms of the design and then the work that we do on the energy efficiency piece. In terms of the design, all of our homes are designed to accomplish what we call right sizing. And we utilize the principles of not so big, which basically employs these ideas of having rooms serve multiple purposes and having large windows and tall ceilings. And the net result of it is that the homes essentially live much larger than they measure, which is a good thing both in terms of energy efficiency and the cost of maintaining the buildings. So in terms of the building envelope, and the investment that we make there has to do with concentrating on trying to two things: employ all electric systems and really drive the energy loads, both for heating and cooling, but also plugs, lights, and appliances to minimal. In terms of the goal of utilizing an all-electric system, and really to be able to take advantage of the efficiencies of a heat pump, an air-sourced heat pump system, it's really important that the building load in terms of heating and cooling is driven down. And so the way we accomplish that is twofold. One, we make sure that the building envelope itself is extremely tight and does not leak out the investment that you've made in heating and cooling. And so we pay attention to all of the details associated with the building, from the foundation, underneath the foundation, all the way up through the roof and then back down again. And so, in fact, if you were to cut a section through the house, you could literally draw a line with your pencil, a continuous line from underneath the slab all the way up over the roof and then back down again. And that's where we're paying attention to. And every time we cut in a window or a door, we make sure that the windows in that opening is properly sealed so that you're not getting the normal leaking and radiation cooling that you feel with a typical building. Once we've ensured that we're not, that the building itself is tight, And I'll give you a metric to sort of compare it, how it might compare to a normal house. A normal house, code-compliant normal house, probably leaks on the order of about one of the size of these windows. Our homes, by comparison, the total leakage is about that much, as if there was a penetration in the house. So it's a really big deal and a really big distinction. Once the house is tight, and we're confident of that, the next thing that we do is we concentrate on various insulation systems. And that insulation kind of follows the air seal. It starts underneath the slab, goes up the foundation wall, goes up the exterior building walls, and then comes over the top of in the roof cavity. The net result of those two investments is effectively we drive the heating and cooling load, we reduce it by about 60 to 70%. And that sets it up and puts it in a great position to utilize highly efficient air source mini split heat pumps. So that's the story on that. Maybe we want to take a look inside. This is inside one of our typical homes. And you can see from some of the things that I mentioned, which is these tall windows, tall ceilings, and then also these sort of long diagonal views. And those decisions help the home live larger than it measures. And so it's a simple design decision, but it's really very powerful. So our homes are typically organized around the idea of open space for the more public functions, in this case, living room, kitchen, dining room. And this particular home has a first floor bedroom, and then upstairs we have 3 additional bedrooms. A triple glazed high performance window does 2 things. It both, certainly from an energy efficiency, the performance is superior, but equally important, a side benefit of that is the acoustical properties of the window. So the homes are very, very quiet. All of the lights are LED. And so, as I mentioned to you outside, one of our typical homes, total energy consumption, and remember, these homes are completely electrical. The annualized average utility bill is about $100 a month, so $1,200 for a year. And so that's a substantial savings over a normal home. And because of the decision to go all electric, the homes then can be driven by a renewable source, so roof-mounted photovoltaic panels, solar panels. The other thing is we're using, I don't know if you can see it, but we're using, because a lot of people like the benefits of gas, we use an electric induction range. And so this has the benefit of being driven by electric, and it has most of the properties of a gas stove. So, for example, a 6-quart pot of water boils in about 90 seconds. And then when you take the pan off and you turn the element off, you can, within seconds, you can put your hand right on the element. It works by magnetism. Okay, so one of the other things that I just want to mention is another important decision that we make is the way that we frame the homes. And so we're using something called advanced framing techniques, which essentially it's similar to the approach that we take to the plan, the right sizing. You only use the amount of lumber that you need. And so instead of studs, for example, being 16 inches on center, which is traditional, these are 24 inches on center. And the other thing is when it comes to a corner, instead of just having that fully built up with a series of 2x6s, we create both L shapes and T shapes, and that allows us to get insulation behind those. And the big decision of going 24 versus 16, the net result of that is that we have it's about a 20% reduction in what's called thermal bridging. So every time you take a piece of wood and it goes from the outside directly to the inside, there's an opportunity for that heat transfer to happen. And so by virtue of reducing the amount of lumber and opportunities for that, there's a big savings. And then in addition to that, we make a conscious decision to put foam on the insulation, which creates a continuous thermal break on the outside of the building. So those are big decisions that really have substantial positive impact on the performance of the building envelope. So things. We're now down in the basement, and the first thing I think I would point out to you is our foundation system. In this case, we're using an insulated plastic foundation system, and it has a number of benefits. The first one probably being that the decision to eliminate the concrete walls, the net result of that is to reduce the amount of water that's introduced into the building by about 60%. And that's a big deal when you've made the investment to create a really tight home. A challenge is that when you introduce that much water, it takes a really long time to get that moisture out of the building. And so we decided that this is a better way to proceed, and it's an insulated system, and on top of it, the foundation's panel, the wall thickness, is about half of what a normal cast-in-place concrete wall would be, plus the insulation system. So if you go around the perimeter of the basement, you're effectively picking up on the order of 1,000 cubic feet, which is a big deal on a small footprint home. So that was a great decision. We also, you can see, we have 9-foot ceilings, which really makes the space much more usable. In terms of mechanical systems, I think I'll start with the air-sourced mini-split heat pump. This is the air handling unit. In our homes, we're using a combination of ducted systems for the main living first floor, and then on the second floor, we're utilizing ceiling-mounted cassettes. And so what happens is there's a single outdoor unit, the heat pump itself, which generates either warm water or cold water, and then distributes it to these different points, either this air handling unit or the ceiling cassettes. And it's a highly efficient way to heat and cool a home. I talked about the tightness of the homes, and when you make that decision, what becomes really important, especially when you got about this much of air leakage, it's really important to introduce and to manage the fresh air and the stale air in the home. So we utilize a heat recovery ventilator, essentially a whole house ventilation system. And what that does is it exhausts the stale air from the bathrooms. In this case, these are 2.5 bathrooms. And it takes that air that you've made the investment to heat and cool, and it brings it back into this device. And inside this device is a heat exchanger. And so what it does is it grabs that energy, that investment, and it uses it to preheat or pre-cool, depending upon which season you're in, the incoming fresh air that is then distributed to all the living spaces. Living spaces in this case would be bedrooms and living and the more public functions. So that's a very important feature. And most people that come into our homes comment on the difference of the air quality. And so it's noticeable. And the third thing that I want to point out, and maybe the last one, is what we use for generating our hot water. Because after heating and cooling, the next biggest load is your hot water. And so what we've done is we've made the decision to utilize a heat pump, an electric heat pump. Again, there's that theme of all electric heat pump system to generate the hot water. So these are highly efficient and means of generating your hot water. So just an important note, because I know some people have some concerns about the heat pumps. Because of the investment that we make both in the air sealing and the insulation systems, one of the benefits or the byproducts of that decision is that our homes tend to do what we call coast very well. So unlike your traditional air sourced or hot air system, our homes, which are continually cycling on and off, every 15 minutes or so as they fill the house up with either heat, warm air, cold air, and then it just leaks out. Our homes retains that. So, and we're not just talking for minutes, we're talking hours and in a lot of cases days, where they have the ability to maintain their temperature for a very long time. And so it gives you that greater peace of mind that the homes will be comfortable year-round.
So we're here at, this is an 8-lot single-family subdivision, a little bit different than what we just saw at Emerson Green. These are 15,000 square foot lots. The rear portions of the lots, 7,000 square feet of the rear portions of the lots are permanently protected open space, and we'll take a look at that later. But that was a cluster subdivision, so we allowed these houses to be built a little closer, a little tighter together in exchange for building more energy efficient homes using many of the energy efficient design measures that we talked about in the last housing project at Emerson Green. But this house uses double wall construction to have a full continuous barrier of insulation, which reduces the thermal bridging and makes it super energy efficient. So these homes are actually, they were required to be a HERS rating of at least 60. HERS stands for Home Energy Rating Scale. So a home built to traditional code scores about 100 on a HERS rating scale. And the lower the number, the more efficient the home. So the homes we saw at Emerson Green were around in the HERS rating of 40, so 60% more efficient than a traditionally built home. This home here is a HERS rating of around -28, which means this house produces more energy than it consumes over a given year. And that's because of a number of factors, but one, that double wall construction makes it super well insulated. Number two, the solar panels are making up for all the energy that the house uses and more, so it's feeding back energy to the grid. 78 solar panels, and I think it had a HERS rating of, like I said, -28. Because it's so well insulated, it just has a couple of Mitsubishi Mr. Slim ductless mini splits. Two? Three. But you only really use two, right? Yeah. So it's very super energy efficient. Very well insulated from sound. When you're inside, you don't hear anything outside unless the windows are open. Has the heat recovery ventilators that, maximize the energy efficiency of the indoor air that's already conditioned. That stale air is exhausted, and as the new fresh air comes in, the heat or cool exchanges. The energy used to heat or cool the inside air exchanges to that incoming air, so it makes it much more efficient. From a stormwater management perspective, smaller lots, like I said, that's 7,000 square foot of developable area. The other 7,000 to 8,000 square feet of the lot is permanently protected open space. But low impact development techniques, no gutters on the house. Everything infiltrates directly on site, so we don't have any storm sewer systems. The front of the house, you can see the plantings there in a depressed area. That's a small rain garden that takes all the runoff from the driveway. So no runoff is really leaving this site. Everything's being infiltrated on site. We're lucky on Devens to have very permeable soils. All right, so we mentioned these homes are on 7 to 8,000 square feet of buildable space, and the rear 7,000 to 8,000 feet of the lots are protected open space, so it's a cluster subdivision. Just beyond the fence line here is that open space that was naturalized. It's basically been allowed to regrow naturally. This is an old Army residential neighborhood, so we're reusing an existing neighborhood. But I mentioned the low impact development techniques. From a stormwater management perspective, this reduces the size of lawns, reduces fertilizer and pesticide use, and it actually connects into a existing stream system, stream corridor nearby, so it's adding extra wildlife habitat into the neighborhood as well. So just a great extra environmental benefit to cluster type subdivision.